Okay, let's get started. I don't know where the rest of the students are, but hopefully they'll be filtering in as we begin. Today I'm going to introduce a couple of guest speakers from the American Bowling Congress, Mr. Norm Cummings and Hal Kaminski, and they will give you their titles and a little bit of background about the American Bowling Congress, which some of you may know right now is the postcard would indicate are holding their annual event over at the Mobile Convention Center. But I'll let them tell you a little more about that. So Norm, Hal, I'll turn it over to you.
As you mentioned, my name is Hal Kaminski. I'm the ABC Tournament Director and have a pretty unique job in that I live in a different city every year. Wherever we host a tournament, that's where I live for that particular year. Next year it'll be Reno, Nevada. The year after that will be Salt Lake City, Utah, then Huntsville, Alabama, and then back to Reno. Just to show you what the impact of the tournament can have on a city, Reno, Nevada is building us a $30 million national bowling stadium, which will be a permanent installation in Reno. And the reason that they did that was if we would commit to have our tournament in that particular facility every third year for the next 15 years. The economic impact of the community when we come into a city like Mobile is approximated at $35 million. When we go into Reno, that's somewhere between $60 and $70 million. So now you know why they wanted to build us this stadium, so the bowlers could gamble and mostly lose, partially win. As I mentioned, I'm the tournament director. Mr. Cummings is the director of our public relations department, and if any of you are familiar with public relations, they usually have the cream of the crop as far as the jobs are concerned. I'm going to have to stay here and present a slide presentation to you, but he has an 11 o'clock at Timber Creek. So I'm going to let him talk to you about the public relations department first, and then I'll come back and show you the slide presentation, which entails what happens from a bare concrete floor in the convention center to the resurrection of this tournament to the final conclusion. So Norm, if you'd like to talk to him about PR.
Thanks, Alan. And on behalf of the American Bowling Congress, we're real pleased to be able to get our message off to you folks. To give you a little background on the tournament, Hal will get into the facilities and management and so on and so forth, but just to give you an idea of the scope of the tournament, this is our 91st tournament. We have bowlers this year, approximately 1,200 bowlers will be bowling in 25th or longer tournament. I personally am bowling in my 34th tournament. Hal will be bowling in, I think, your 34th also. We have one gentleman this year who will be bowling in his 65th tournament. He's 86 years old. He bowls out of San Diego. Man, still carrying 200 average. Now, if you've done any bowling in your lifetime, kind of get a handle on what this man has been able to accomplish. I know being in the sports industry, you've probably heard of the Olympics when Jesse Owens was rejected by Adolf Hitler. Joe Norris bowled in that tournament in Germany, in the Olympics. He's still competing. Not only is he competing, but in 1992 in Corpus Christi, he took over the all-time pinfall record from another gentleman, Mr. Dorman out of Fort Worth, Fort Wayne, Indiana. And Mr. Dorman had bowled in 72 consecutive tournaments. Think of doing that from the beginning. He bowled in the first one in 72 consecutive years. Well, in doing so, Joe Norris breaking the record, in the first game, we knew that he was going to break the record by approximately second or third frame. And Joe, being a great kidder and prankster, still retains that same quality. He gets up, and on the very first ball that he throws it in the gutter. Now, we really didn't know what had happened. I mean, he just threw it in the gutter. But he apologized later on and said that it wasn't a prank, that he had shaken so many hands during the time preceding the event that his hands were just tired. And but he did come back, and he shot a 570 something that series. Came back the next morning to bowl the doubles and singles and had, I think it was around 640 in the doubles. His final game in the singles event, he started with the first 9 strikes. Now, I hope that you may be able to get over to see Joe. He'll be bowling on Wednesday, I think it's about the 16th of March, whatever that Wednesday might be in that week. You won't believe the man. He has kept himself in phenomenal condition. But this is a lifetime sport, and I know that in the sports industry we talk about lifetime sports. And this is one that truly you can participate from very little on up to into the 90s. Joe is not our oldest bowler, by the way, as far as the participants. We have bowlers who bowl into their 90s in this tournament. And it's not unusual. Like I said, we have, I believe this year, 8 bowlers who will be bowling in their 50th or more tournament. Joe happens to hold the longevity record right now, and I hope he continues on. His goal back in 1989, when he bowled in the 60th tournament, was to raise his average to 195, career average for the tournament. Now, he was at 194. He bowled 18 games a year, and multiply 18 times 60. He has to have that many pins over his average to raise it by 1 pin. That's quite a feat. Hal Kaminski here is an outstanding bowler, and Hal, over the years, has carried a 200 average in our tournament. Lifetime average. I think right now he's down a little bit, but Hal and I are members of the Hall of Fame in Wisconsin for competition, and have carried 200 averages all of our lives. And my lifetime average in the ABC is 188. It's a tough shot out there. And here's a guy who's 86 years old, still competing, still doing his thing, and raising his average. Absolutely incredible. So, generally speaking, our tournament is very unique in sports. We have, as far as I'm aware of, the only national championship that requires no pre-qualification. You can become a national champion as the national champion bowler without any pre-qualification. You do have to have membership in our organization, which has now been extended to ladies. We do have a sister organization called the Women's International Bowling Congress, and as of October of this year, we have opened up the doors to the ladies to be able to compete, and we've had women competing in the tournament this year already. On the first day, we had an Alabama that competed. But to get back to the aspect of becoming a national champion, all we have to do as a bowler is be a member of the organization, which recognizes the national champion, very nominal membership fee, and show up, pay your entry fee, bring your bowling ball, get out on the lanes, and be the best bowler on that one particular day. Our tournament this year will be running 128 days. We started February 5th. We'll go through June 12th. We, during that time, we'll have a number of lead changes. And as you've probably seen on television, we've had real good coverage, number of 298, 299, 300s, and 800 series. It's quite a unique event in that there's no situation where you have to come back and go through any other kind of qualifying besides the pre-qualifying. There are no step ladders or anything like that. We've had our tournament over the years won on the very first day of the tournament by posting a score which stood throughout the whole tournament. And also we've had the tournament won on the last day of the tournament, virtually the last squad. So it's very, very unique, and it gives great competition and a tremendous loyalty amongst the bowlers who come to it. Our organization overall, I think, is about 2.2 million male members right now. Ladies' organization is very similar to that. That's nationally. This year we will be having 9,285 teams, 5-man teams, 5-person teams competing. We used to be able to say 5-man teams, 5-person teams now. And that translates to about 46,000 bowlers approximately. And their guests, which jump the numbers almost on a one-to-one basis up to over 90,000 people coming in to the area and adding to that economic impact of $35 to $40 million. We operate a 7-day-a-week schedule. The only time that we skip a beat is during our Masters Week when we invite the professionals in. And it's also open up to the highly qualified amateur bowlers besides the professionals. And they compete for the Masters title. That's a $43,000 first place prize. The tournament itself, the overall tournament, pays out over $2 million in prizes. Wait, no, it's $1.4 million in prizes. And it's a very long prize list. We have thousands and thousands of people who will cash in this tournament. We pay a $2,000 first prize in each event. So people don't come here to bowl for the money. There's a whole lot more money being made in other tournaments throughout the country. The prestige of having the eagle. Eagle is our symbol, and each person who becomes a champion has an eagle which is put by their name next to the scoreboard. Hal will show you what the scoreboards are like. We have a very unique scoring system. It's not like what you'd see at your traditional bowling center. It's about a $2 million, I think it was $2.5 million in 1979 scoring system to keep track of everything that goes through there. And you can imagine the numbers of thousands and thousands of games. It is a new facility. We have new lane conditions every year, new machines, and we operate on a 17-hour day approximately, starting at 7:30 in the morning, and rarely do we finish later than 1:30, except for the last week and a half. We've been running a little late, and it's been 3 and 4 o'clock in the morning by the time we get done. So it's a full-time project for all of our employees and a number of the local people who join us in our staff. We couldn't do it without hiring some local people. Hal and I, as Hal mentioned, are unique in that we travel to a different city every year, and we have about 40 people on our staff that do the same thing that we do by traveling. It's just that they don't spend as much time in the city as Hal does. I spend a little bit less time in the city than Hal does, but nevertheless, we do have a unique opportunity in seeing this country of ours and getting to know an area quite uniquely rather than just as a visitor or guest. Do you have any questions regarding anything that we might do in public relations? Yes.
Is your home office still in Milwaukee?
Greendale, Wisconsin, which is a suburb of Milwaukee, yes.
Yeah, I remember when you were on Capitol Drive there.
That's right, yeah.
I grew up a mile away.
Is that right? Whitefish Bay, probably.
Whitefish Bay.
Yeah. Any other questions? Yes.
Right now you're in Mobile for this tournament. You spread the tournament around from city to city?
We do. It works through a site selection committee. Our American Bowling Congress is in fact a Congress. We have approximately 2,600 local bowling associations throughout the United States, as well as the 50 state associations. And we have a membership meeting congressionally in March during the, usually it's about third week of March. And during that time, we review legislation which has been proposed during the year. And the delegates representing the membership then votes on whatever legislation may be involved, whether it be a change in dues or any other type of legislation that might be involved with equipment, for example, or specifications. Those things that need to be changed or addressed as the sport progresses. And so we are the governing body for men's bowling in the United States, and now, as I mentioned, it's open to both men and ladies. Yes?
Do you have corporate sponsorships or How do you get the money to?
We do, in a sense, have corporate sponsorship with with the American Machine and Foundry Company, AMF Corporation, as well as the Brunswick Corporation. This year's facility was put in by the Brunswick Corporation. Hal will probably get into that a little bit more in his talk when it deals with the construction. But we don't have the type of corporate sponsor for our tournament that you would see for a national, international tennis event, or the Winston 500 or whatever it might be. It is the American Bowling Congress tournament without any sponsorship. It doesn't mean that people don't contribute in a way to it as far as the industry is concerned, because we do have retail booth space at the tournament site, and Hal will get into that, into the construction. And those people, in a sense, are supporting because they pay us rent for their space. And we do have a corporate sponsor for the Masters tournament, which is the Bud Light, Budweiser group. Yes?
Do you ever use college interns working?
We have on occasion, and I think there's someone had asked about the possibility of internship, and I know Mr. Kaminski mentioned it to me this morning, and it's something that we'll have to talk about and see about possibility. I certainly, beyond just coming in and working as an intern, would want to invite anyone who's interested in the public relations end of it to come on over and spend some time, and we can show you what we do and how we do it. We're probably not as efficient as maybe some of the professional sports teams might be, but we have a great staff. Personally, I have 6 people working in the public relations end of it. And when you consider that we're working 7 days a week and have to cover it for 17 hours a day, it gets awful thin. We're working everybody on my staff works a 10-hour day, 6-day-a-week schedule.
Sure.
Yes?
Is there any problems with hotel space?
We haven't. During the Mardi Gras time, there was a bit of a problem in that people had scheduled way out in advance, as Mardi Gras do, of course. And our bowlers, we tried to take that into consideration when we put the schedule together, and we did make some allowances for it. So the first week of competition was very, very light for us. Yes?
How many members do you have in the ABC?
I think it's roughly about 2.2 million right now, which is down. There was a time going back to the 60s, which was the boom time for bowling. And at that point in time, I think we're probably around 5 million members or close to it. And life changes, things change, the priorities change. We didn't have video and sit on the couch type things as much as we do today, perhaps. Television wasn't this big. And you can go through a whole list of problems that exist for bowling that the proprietor has to contend with in order to keep his bowling establishment going. But there's a great deal of competition in other sports. Skiing has grown greatly since the late 50s and early 60s. I'm sure you're all aware of that. Same with tennis. And those are sports that, going back a few years, didn't pull as many people. We're still the largest participating sport. Let's see, how do they phrase that? Is it the membership? I think it's the largest memberships. Drawing a blank on that right now, how it's phrased, but basically what they're saying is that we have the largest membership organization, which is an active participant organization in a sport, except for like fishing, for example. That's not an organized sport, so you can't pull the numbers up on something like that.
You have over 40,000 participate in your tournament. How many are here at one particular time, and how long do they stay?
That's really interesting because of the setup that we have. We have 40 lanes, which provides us with 40 teams each night. And if everyone shows up, it's 40 times 5, 200 times 2. We have 2 shifts a night, 7:30 and 10:15. So that's 400 participants each day entering into competition. The next day, the 400 bowlers come back and are divided up on 5 squads, starting at 7:30 in the morning, 7:30, 9:45, noon, 2:15, and 4:30. 5 80-man squads then absorbs the doubles and singles for the 400 who started in the team event at night. Team event is always bowled at night. Doubles and singles are bowled during the day, and everyone is completed in their competition over one evening and the next day. Any other questions? Thank you for the opportunity, and I do invite you to come on over. Give me a call. I'll leave my card here so that if anyone does want to get in touch with me personally, I'm sure the school can provide that for you. Thank you. I'm going to go play golf. I don't know what you guys are going to do.
Can you get the lights for me, please?
Thank you.
Everyone except the right one. Yeah, there you go. As Norm mentioned to you, the American Bowling Congress is bowling is what the USGA is to golf, the governing body along with the WIBC of the sport. When I move into a city in August, the first thing we do is measure the square footage of the actual convention center and design the installation itself. As he mentioned before, we have AMF and Brunswick, which do the actual construction on an alternating year basis. This happens to be the AMF style of installation, and you'll see 2x4s laid horizontally on the floor and pre-made struts put in a vertical position over the 2x4s. This is a laser, and what it does, it sends a laser beam across the perimeter of the convention hall and is picked up by a laser sensor, which you see here. Now, in order to get the bowling lane level, this thing will emanate a beeping sound until the laser matches the sensor, and then it will become a monotone. And these two carpenters, which you see on the left side of the picture, are doing that, and by shimming up that pre-made strut, they can get the lane when it's put on top almost to a level position already. When that takes place, they put more 2x4s notched in between the struts themselves, and then the lanes are put in an inverted position on top of the 2x4s. The black items you see on the top are just bracing. Then they're flipped over into a bowlable position, and what may look like boards on the surface of the lane are actually not. It's a photograph, and that photograph of the boards is impregnated into the surface to give you the illusion that you're bowling on a wood lane, when actually it is completely smooth. It also gives you the illusion, if you are a bowler, that the lane surface would be very slick and not apt to hook a bowling ball. And in fact, the truth is it's just the opposite. Because it is so smooth, there's more contact with the surface from the bowling ball, and the ball tends to hook more. This is the Brunswick installation, and they use a surveyor's level, as you can see in the middle of the picture, to level up their struts. The unique thing about this is that without the 2x4s on the floor, and if you're going into any area like this, you also look at your labor costs. They have to use a lot of men to put a piece of the lane into position, whereas here they have a hydraulic lift which can roll between those struts, and one person can put the section of the lane in position. There's actually 5 sections to each lane. The bad part about this is we usually have over 1 million frames bowled during the course of the tournament. In those 1 million frames, maybe 3 balls will jump the underlane ball return. And the other one, they can't go very far because a 2x4 will stop them from moving, and it'll be within that lane. Here you can see, and this happens to be Las Vegas, we lost 3 bowling balls there and didn't find them until we tore it up at the end, because they could have rolled from one end of the building to the other. Some people ask why we don't go into a commercial establishment. It would be a lot cheaper. The actual cost of the installation is $500,000. The actual cost of the material that's installed is $2.5 million. So we polled the bowlers, and they didn't want to do that. They wanted to keep it as it is. And as you can see from the scaffolding that's being erected, we need a minimum ceiling height of 30 feet, and no commercial center can accommodate that. These are the scoreboards that he was talking about, 1.5 million. They're the only type of its kind. If you ever watch Family Feud on television, that same type of system is used in Family Feud to mark the scores on these particular scoreboards. We use forklifts to get them in position. They're hung on what we call a unistrut track. This track allows the scoreboard to be moved from one end to the other. And here you can see carpenters putting the scoreboard on lane 1. And yes, there is a stop at the end there so that they can't push it right off the edge. And then the machines are coming in, and this is part of the organizational problems that you can encounter when you're building something like this. First of all, you have to keep all your overhead doors open so you can get material in. In the Brunswick installation, we can have the machines in position and then build a scoreboard. In the Brunswick installation, the machines have to all be in position before we can even begin. So obviously you have to accommodate the lack of effort to do this and the amount of time it takes you to construct. And by the way, we can construct this and do construct it within 4 weeks. At the end of the tournament, we tear it out in 1 week. And here you see them building the mural on top of the scoreboard itself. Here you see in the foreground the ball returns. And then right now, we used to paint this section. If you have the opportunity to come down and see us, and I have 100 free passes over here, which I'm going to give to the school, and hopefully they will stamp them with the school stamp so we know how many of you actually come in. Right now, instead of painting it like you see here, we take the natural wood and put urethane over the top, and it gives it a much neater effect. Seats are installed, ball returns are adjusted, and here we're just about ready to bowl. A grandstand, the Mobile Convention Center has bought a beautiful grandstand for our tournament. And then obviously we need power to run it. And in the contracts that we form with each individual convention center, they are required to supply the power to this panel. And then we take that power and allocate it to all the various integers of the equipment. We also install our own telephone system. This is our own telephone switch, and it's hooked up within the convention center and then hooked up into Southern Bell. But basically between the departments, our own internal telephone system is installed. And here you see the final installation in Wichita. And as I told you before, when they use that sensor to level up the lanes, each association has its own certification department, and rather than for us to measure our own lanes, we have the local association measure them up. And that's what these people are doing here. They're certifying the lanes, and once the lane gets constructed, it cannot vary more than 40 thousandths of an inch from one edge to the other, nor can there be more than 40 thousandths variable across the surface. And the way that the 40 thousandths is about the thickness of a dime. And if somebody shoots a 300 or something, then it's rechecked. Other than that, it's checked after construction and never checked again until we move. And as he mentioned, there are peripheral booths which are built to accommodate sales. Here we have Brunswick, and by the way, Brunswick as a sponsor provides all the equipment free of charge. We just pay for the installation, and then they have experts within the facility. If bowlers want to purchase equipment, they're up to date on the type of equipment and how it should be drilled. And I'll just go through these rather quickly. These are all the major manufacturers: Columbia, Ebonite, and this lady, she rents out video cameras for people to videotape their performances, punches designs on jackets. We have shirt booths, and this is a souvenir and jewelry counter which sells trinkets. And in conjunction with our tournament, we run the Bowler's Journal tournament, which is a national magazine based out of Chicago, and they run their BJ tournament. This year it's being held at Camellia Lanes. This gentleman, I noticed you have artist rendering on the walls here. I'm sure he doesn't compare to this guy, but he'll paint your face or whatever you want on a bowling pin bag or whatever. And this association booth is quite important to the community itself. Mr. Cummings comes in ahead of time and sells advertising to various businesses throughout the community. If you purchase that advertising, you are allowed to put your brochures on this counter. He has also sold a video wall, which is pretty unique. It's the first time we've had it. And if you have purchased advertising on there, you're also allowed to put your brochures on this counter. If you do not, then you are not allowed to bring your material inside the building itself. And we have a concession stand. There's the area for the bowlers to either celebrate their victory or drown their agony of defeat. And then we have various displays which Mr. Cummings puts together of champions, 300 game participants, etc., trophy case. And these are all the people that have bowled 300 games, and if it keeps going at the pace, we're going to have to either reduce the size of the picture or get another wall like that. And this is a computerized, up-to-date scoring system which keeps the top 10 in each division automatically through the computer. And this is our Masters bracket board where we have 480 professionals and amateurs come in May. It will be broadcast over ESPN, and you start off with 480, it gets cut to the top 64. They get put on this bracket, and it's a double elimination tournament. If you lose, you go to the right side of the board in the loser's bracket, and if you lose twice, you're out of the tournament, and it eliminates everybody to the top 5. This is how we condition the lanes every evening, and what that is basically a vacuum cleaner which is sucking the oil off the surface of the lane. It first puts down a layer of water. As the water goes in, obviously, you know the oil comes to the top, and then the vacuum sucks the oil off the top along with the water, making the lane completely dry. During doubles and singles, and between doubles and singles and team event, we don't have the time to use that machine, so this gentleman puts a fluid on the lane with a cleaner in it, which takes the oil off the back ends, or what we call the carry down, and then we recondition the front. And these are computerized machines, and we have probably close to $100,000 worth of lane maintenance machinery. And you can computerize this machine to the point where you can very accurately determine the amount of oil which is put on each particular board. In the oil is an ultraviolet additive. And with that ultraviolet additive, after it's applied to the lane, we have a method by taking a piece of Scotch tape on a device, and actually the tape tapes the oil to the surface, and another piece of tape comes on and pinches it between the two. Where one tape, the glue side is towards the lane, the other tape, the glue side is towards the tape that was on the lane. I know that's confusing. But as you put it through this electronic reader, it actually gives you a cross-section pattern of how the oil is applied. And we try to apply it in a curve with less oil on the edge and more oil in the middle. These are line adjusters machines which we run in between squads, and they just take off the surface dust. The first people, and as he mentioned before, for 90 years, the ABC tournament was strictly men, so we always had the ladies come in ahead of time because we never had to worry about them participating in the tournament, so we could use them to give us a test cruise of the installation. And we had 480 ladies from Mobile come in here and give our equipment kind of a shakedown cruise. Everything was free, coffee and donuts, and they had themselves a good time. Now we're going to have to monitor it in the future because now they are allowed to bowl. And that came about by 5 ladies in Michigan who wanted to join the American Bowling Congress because our Constitution didn't allow it. We're going to take us to court to force us to have women in the organization. And we decided that the way society is going right now, that would be ridiculous. So it's been opened up to women, and I would anticipate that the WIBC, which is the women's counterpart to our group, would be opening their organization to men shortly. And in order to get bowling into the Olympics did not recognize two different organizations within one. So at that point, they formed an umbrella organization called the United States 10-Pin Bowling Federation. And bowling was an exhibition sport in '92, and they're still fighting the battle to try and get it as a medal sport in the future. As Norm touched upon also, we hire 65% new employees every year, and if you're thinking about going into business, that's not a good idea, but it's the only way that we can operate. So we have 35% employees, which we call travelers, which come to our tournament on a yearly basis, and 65% new employees that are affiliated with bowling in some way in the local community. Prior to our opening, we have a YABA, which involves the youth of the area, and they bowl in a YABA tournament. And I don't have a slide of the next event, but we started having a Special Olympics tournament, a national Special Olympics tournament, and that has grown yearly, and we anticipate that to almost have to evolve into a 2-day event instead of a single-day event. Then the actual tournament begins, and as Norm touched on, we have 800 bowlers a day, over 100,000 people coming through, impacting the community to $35 to $40 million. They register at the registration counter. We have a locker room. Then they go into a scale room. Every bowling ball is checked. This gentleman here is checking it for hardness. A needle penetrates the surface of the ball, and we have a durometer dial indicator which indicates how hard the ball is. If it's below 72 durometer hardness, it cannot be used. If it's anywhere above, it can. If it's close, we'll give the bowler the benefit of the doubt and leave it in the building. If he got it, like if he bowls here in April and it's very hot outside, the temperature affects the hardness of the bowling ball. This gentleman's just weighing it up. It cannot weigh over 16 pounds. If it's anything under 16 pounds, it's acceptable. If it's 1601, he cannot use it. Here he's checking it for balance. There's actually 6 sides to it: the front, the back, the right, the left, the top to the bottom. Around the perimeter, from front to back, and front meaning in front of the finger and back meaning behind the thumb, it cannot vary more than 1 ounce. Between the top and the bottom, it cannot vary more than 3 ounces. For those of you that are familiar with the construction of a bowling ball, there is a weight block put at the top to accommodate the drilling of the finger and thumb hole. If the bowling ball were homogeneous, it would always have bottom weight, which is detrimental to the way the ball should roll down the lane. If there's a minor adjustment to be made, he can take it over here. An additional hole can be drilled in the bowling ball to correct the weight imbalance. And these are the gentlemen that do it, and believe it or not, the average number of bowling balls carried by a bowler in our tournament is 3. So if you multiply that out, you can see that they approach weighing over 250,000 bowling balls between beginning and end. Then we take them into the squadron. We give them squadron announcements. We have a photo. Actually, it's like a mini photo motor or motor photo, whatever you call them. And they get their picture taken. It's developed, and by the time they finish bowling, it's given to them. And then we have the actual installation, opening night ceremonies. We had the Murphy High School Marching Band here. Then the bowlers come out. And then we had the U.S. Coast Guard Color Guard perform. And we don't have the slides developed yet, but we had 40 azalea maids on each one of the lanes, which gave it a lot of color and something different that we've never had before. And here you see everybody lined up across the surface. We had the mayor and one of the congressmen give opening night speeches. Now we have a unique ceremony. This happens to be Miss Tulsa and Miss Oklahoma. And they pull a guy's capsule out of a cage, one of 200 on the opening squad. They bring him to the center, put this king's robe on him, give him a crown and scepter. And then he officially throws the opening ball to start the tournament. And if he's anywhere near anybody else, he usually throws the first one in the ditch because he's encumbered by all that clothing and then all the attention. And we keep having him bowl until he at least knocks one pin down. And then, as Norm said, we start at 7:30 in the morning with doubles and singles and go to 1:30, 2 o'clock in the morning of the next day, and that's the typical day. He also touched upon how we vote on amending legislation, changing rules, and this is a typical convention, and the number of people involved in taking care of all the legislation which is connected with the sport of bowling. And we have our Hall of Fame ceremony the second week in March. If you're a bowler, this is the highest honor that you can have bestowed upon you. It's comparable to the Football and Baseball Hall of Fame. This is the highest honor you can get in bowling. Then we have our Pro-Am event prior to the Masters, in which the professionals, the gentleman in the blue striped shirt, if you're a bowler at all, is Dick Weber. And he's coming off the lane shaking hands with one of the amateurs, and we will be promoting this throughout the community within the next month. Just to show you some of the problems that can evolve, we had Columbia 300. If you participate in this, you got a Columbia 300 yellow dot bowling ball. The Professional Bowlers Tour was in financial difficulty, so they made every person that had a bowling ball that represented a major manufacturer, the manufacturer had to come up with $25,000 per manufacturer for them to have the professional use their bowling ball on TV with a label showing. So that affected the sponsorship for our Pro-Am, and right now we're working on another sponsor to try and host that event. Then we have the Masters, and that is sponsored by Bud Light. The gentleman that you see there is George Pappas, and this is the one that will be taking place the first week in May and will be televised over ESPN. Then we also have the National Seniors. Every state qualifies a senior to come to the National to win the National Senior Championship. That did include women. They were going to bowl on their own installation again this year, and hopefully next year we'll get them back on ours. And their awards are given them to immediately upon conclusion. And then we get into computerization of it. This is the score sheet printer, and immediately upon their finishing of an event, they can go to the public relations area and get their score sheets. This is the mastermind of the whole installation. The CRTs, which we have on the lane for them to make corrections if necessary regarding scoring. The discs that hold the information, this is the gentleman who designed and programmed it. And these are the ladies in Milwaukee who are processing the reservations for Reno as we speak. And it's like painting the Brooklyn Bridge. Once they start the reservations for Reno, they'll continue that until Reno begins. And then the reservations will start coming in for Salt Lake. And that's how the cycle continues and continues. And if we could have the lights, please, that's it. I'm just about on time. I got about 3 minutes here for questions, if anybody has any questions. Yes?
There's a couple mentioned every day, 7 days a week, finish, and have those exhibits hot,
That is correct.
all the time.
That is correct. They usually, the exhibits open, we have our first squad at 7:30 and every 2 hours and 15 minutes thereafter. So the first squad ends at 9:45 and all the exhibits usually are open then. And then after the 10:15 squad goes on in the evening, they usually stay open until 10:30. Figured anybody that's bold on the 10:15 squad that hasn't purchased material at that point will have to come back the next day, and they usually buy it after doubles and singles because that's when they're leaving the community. Yes?
What happens to the equipment at the end of, when you have the turn,
Okay, we try and sell it in one package if we can. If we can't, we break it up and try and sell it locally. If we can't sell it locally, it's nationally or internationally, and if none of the three above work, then it gets sent back to the Brunswick warehouse. We cannot use it again, and here again, we'll at that convention this year here in Mobile, we'll have to change our constitution because we cannot use used equipment. We have to have brand new equipment every year. So that will be changed because obviously we're going to be going into Reno every third year. And on that site committee that he was talking about, if a city wants our tournament, they send a letter to our corporate headquarters. They send out a site inspection team. I happen to be on that team, and what we do is we go into the city, first of all, obviously check the square footage of the convention center to see if it fits. If it fits, then somebody asked about hotel accommodations. Then they will check to make sure the hotels can handle the influx of the bowlers. And if that all is positive, in March, this year we'll be bidding on the year 1999 and 2000. And we have 6 cities bidding for each year, the identical cities. And they are Albuquerque, Portland, Tulsa, Corpus Christi, Syracuse, and Wichita. And each one of those cities will make a final presentation to this site selection committee, which is comprised of 12 people, none of which can reside in the state in which the city is bidding. And so they will have their final presentation, and then this committee of 12 will vote to see which particular city gets the tournament. Yes, ma'am?
It was mentioned earlier about that this was probably the only national tournament without any pre-qualification. So if someone is a member of your American Bowling Congress and they wanted to come down to Mobile this year to compete, what did they have to do besides being just being a member?
They had to fill out a reservation form, and somebody asked before where we get the finances if we don't have a corporate sponsor to run this, and it's off of the entry fee. It costs you $20 per event. Now let's say, for instance, that you had a team that bowled last year on the 56th day of the tournament, and you wanted to keep the 56th day of the tournament for the rest of your life. Prior to March 1st of the previous year, you would have had to fill out a reservation form and put a $100 deposit to reserve that spot. If you continue doing that without missing the payment and filling out that form, you will have the 56th day of the tournament the rest of your life, and we will give it to nobody else. And then at January 1st, then you would have to pay the rest of your fees, which would be $20 per man per event, plus $5 for all events, which is the summation of doubles, team, and single scores. Now, as far as that goes, anybody in this room, we have, like we said before, 45,000 people. Of that 45,000 people, 1,000 are not going to show up. They're either going to die or be injured or get sick. If any of you would want to participate, you could go down to the public relations and the registration area and register as a substitute. All it would take is for you to give them your available time, what your average was, which is not a necessity, by the way, but they would like to know that. And then if you were not a member of our organization, you could buy an unattached card. And then if one of these openings occurred and they called you, any person that's sitting in this room could participate in the tournament. Yes?
Is the ABC inventing any new marketing strategies for upcoming athletes, children athletes, to get them involved in bowling, since there's all these other competitive sports? Are they trying any new techniques? Or?
They're trying a new in-school program where they have actually a carpet which is laid out like a bowling lane with it looks like boards on it, and then they have like plastic pins and a little plastic ball, so that kids like 5, 6, and 7 can do this, and they're trying to get them involved in that aspect of it. And that is nationwide along with college programs. There is an ACUI tournament, which is not shown there either, which I missed, and it's the American College Union International, where it takes all the collegiate champions and gets through. I just got a magazine which refers to the bowling industry, and they're trying to, for proprietors in northern states, for instance, it's more prevalent than it is in the South. In the South, where the seasons are not so noticeable as in the North, bowling seems to be a pretty well-balanced year-round sport. I used to own a bowling center in Wisconsin in a resort community called Oconomowoc. And in the summer, I might as well have closed my doors, except I had a food concession with it, which helped me get through the summer. But now they're talking about having sand volleyball, softball field next to the bowling center, where you can bring the people and modify your business to accommodate the summer sports. Miniature golf, for instance, and they even have tennis courts behind there. And then they even have tried golf bowling tournaments, where you would play a golf scramble, use your golf score, and then bowl what they call the Baker system in bowling, which is kind of unique, where if you have a 5-man team, each bowler bowls one frame of a game, so that all 5 participate in each individual game. You're not bowling an individual game by yourself. And we have instituted 2 years ago the National Team Challenge, in where the champions are determined by that Baker system. And so they're trying to change the aspects of the game, and the equipment used to be able to buy a bowling ball for $25 to $50. Now Brunswick has come out with a ball called the Quantum, which is retailing at the center for $199. And with all the technology that goes into the construction of a bowling ball, you can have it drilled with different types of weights. I throw this out because everybody asks me what bowling ball they should bring to the ABC tournament. And I tell them that you have to match the coefficient of friction of the surface of the lane to the frictional characteristic of the ball, to the speed at which you throw it, to the amount of revolutions you impart. I usually get them. But that's basically what they do. I mean, there is what they call a break point when you're bowling. And how many are actual bowlers? Okay, we got 1, 2. All right, when you throw the ball down the lane, obviously you're imparting a certain amount of force to it. And you're also, if you lift it properly, which you should be doing because the hook gives it more impact when it hits the pins. Okay, when the first force that you have imparted to it slows down so that the revolutions that you impart take over, that's called the break point. And when it penetrates the pocket, it actually only hits 4 pins. It hits the 1, the 3, the 5, and the 8. And in order for it to penetrate, the pins weigh 3 pounds, 6 ounces each. The bowling ball, as I told you, weighs 16 pounds. In order for it to get to the pocket and get to the 5 pin and actually have enough force to blow the 5 into the 7, which is a very good strike, you have to have a right impact angle and the right amount of revolutions for it to do this. And we have a testing and research, and I used to work in there before I got the job with the tournament, and they have a lane set up in this research department, and I was fortunate enough to have my game analyzed when I went there over the winter, and it tells you exactly how fast you threw it. They'll have you throw 40 shots. They'll tell you how fast you threw it, on exactly what board you hit at the arrows, and what impact angle it penetrated the pocket. They don't have any pins up there because they don't want you to be disturbed or try and make adjustments in order to hit the pocket. They're just trying to determine how accurate and how consistent you are. But if the impact angle is not correct, that's when you leave the 10 pin and you leave the 4 pin. And we get a lot of guys saying, well, I bowled better than him but didn't score as well. And that's sometimes what happens. Anything else? Yes?
I'm also interested in like professionals. How much money can they make?
Well, again, I used to do that myself too. In fact, I was out there in 1972. In my first year on the PBA tour, I finished 64th in the money list, which meant I didn't have to rabbit. And I don't know if you know what that means, but sometimes you have to qualify to bowl in the tournament every week. If you're up in a certain amount of money, you don't have to rabbit. You can just send in your entry and you can bowl every week. 64th on the money list, I won $15,000. It took me $20,000 to be out there that year, so my net loss was $5,000. I looked at the same guy on the golf tour who was in 64th place on the golf tour, and he won $55,000. So that differential is always going to be there, I think. They're never going to approach golf, the reason being that they can't get as many people in a bowling center as you can get on a golf course. And I'm sure you've seen golf tournaments where the top prize is $250,000. And our prize in the Masters of $43,000 first place is probably second or third on the amount of tournaments that you can win that type of money in. Actually, I'm glad I'm an amateur right now because I can go to Las Vegas and bowl in the high roller and win $250,000 as an amateur. And it's preventing a lot of amateur bowlers from turning pro. But there again, being in Las Vegas, that's a pot shot tournament. They got 400 or 500 people, and you draw a name out of a hat and you bowl that person. And if you win, you keep going. If you lose, you're home. That costs you a $1,000 entry fee, and it may take you 10 minutes, and you're done. Anything else? Okay, thank you very much for your attention. Hopefully we'll see you some of you down there. And who knows, maybe I'll read about you someday as a top-notch bowler.
A couple of quick announcements.